What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the PieJ Podcast. Today, I am here with Zelinator.
Hello,
Last,
everybody. My name is Elenator.
God,
Can't believe you.
I hate how close you are to Zealot for Christ, but it is what it is. Yeah, today we're here with Zelinator. I almost did it again. Um, yeah, Alex is here to join us. It's pretty great. Um, If you guys remember, I did an episode of the PieJ Podcast 2 weeks ago where me and Isaac basically talked about um, anything controversial. Basically, we weren't planning on doing a bunch of controversial subjects, but basically, like our idea was to talk about God mostly, um, and then it kind of just spiraled into you know abortions and gun rights and religion. It got weird, but today. Oh, and also another thing I wanted to mention was last week I did not get to upload an episode of the PieJ podcast, which I apologize for. I had an if you watch the channel of my main channel, you'll know soon, or probably already know, depending on when you watch this. I went to Vegas, and the times for getting stuff recorded just did not work out for me. I couldn't get anything done on as fast as I wanted to. So I didn't get to record anything last weekend, but I'm here today with Alex, and we're going to be talking about. I haven't told you yet, right?
Nope, you haven't said it's gonna be a surprise.
Well, it's because mostly had an idea, but then I got a better idea today, so it literally just kind of changed a couple hours ago.
Oof.
But I think it'll be a much better topic for you and me to talk about. We're going to be talking about Area 51.
Oh no!
Yes.
Oh no!
Yes. We're talking
That's next
about
week
how.
already.
Yep, next week. Next week there has been plans to raid Area 51, and I
Oh,
figured
it's
we could
storm, not
talk
raid.
storm. I'm sorry. People are gonna storm Area 51, and I figured that could be a fun topic for me and Zelenita to talk about. And it's funny because I was worried that I was gonna have to use my other topic because hear me out, Alex. I know this will be a fun one to talk about, but it's much better than my other idea. I usually am trying now to go to my Instagram or my social media to ask people for topics because I want it to
You
kind of
said
be a
this
little bit.
one.
Yeah. This one actually for Area 51 was my own mother, and which is stupid or not. I mean, it's kind of cool. Like I thought it was a really good idea, but it's better than the original idea. I was looking through the people who suggested ideas for this week's episode, and the only really good one I got, good, was how do jellyfish have sex?
I'm not sure if that's my thing. I'm not a
I
sea person,
so I don't know. I
marine
mean,
biologist.
I think for you who asked, I won't mention names, but just so we answer your
Cough,
question,
cough.
I'm pretty sure I heard that one of them absorbs the other one, and that's how they mate, and then out pops a couple babies.
I thought it was.
I don't know if that's
Is it
accurate.
babies or eggs?
Eggs, I think eggs. I think it's
Okay.
eggs, but I'm not sure if that.
I
I
don't
don't
know
know if
either.
that's accurate, so don't quote me. But yeah, but
Don't quote me.
today,
I don't know.
yeah, today we're actually talking about Area 51, which I think is a much better topic for you and me specifically.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll take that over jellyfish.
yeah, I figured. Um, so that being said, where should we start? I think we should start basically like talking about how this all started. Um, if you don't know, is
The
it
guy
wasn't it?
making a joke.
Yeah, it was a guy making it. Wasn't it Facebook?
I
I think
think so.
it was Facebook.
He
Uh,
started a group and
yeah.
bag mistake.
Oh, I know. Because I think he had to take the group down. So I'm sure that there was a guy who basically made a Facebook group called something like Area 51 storming. They can't stop all of us. That was like the big claim. Um, and it got way too big. How many? Oh, no, the
2.4 million.
2.4 million.
I think.
Holy crap!
I think there's. I think.
That's insane. That's nuts. I So 2 million people, over 2 million people signed up for this group. And so when that amount of popularity started, coming to formation, uh, I guess the U.S. government got a little like antsy, like, oh crap, they might actually try and storm us. We need to, tell them to back off, which I think is hilarious. Um, I'm pretty sure the Facebook group actually got deleted though. Like I think they
I'm
had
not
to,
surprised.
yeah, I'm pretty sure they had to remove it. Um, and I think the guy who posted it actually came out saying like it was just a joke. I'm not actually going to do it, and nobody else please do it. And obviously, for me, and I would imagine Alex, don't go storm Area 51. Don't be an idiot. It's not going to work. Like you're not going to find what you want. But
Did this come up because y'all were in Vegas?
no, I wish.
'Cause
But
you're closer there than here.
oh, fun fact though, since you bring that up, Jordan's grandfather worked in Area 51. And anytime Jordan asked anything about it, he wasn't at liberty to discuss it. He's not allowed to, and she's told us this. Like he's not allowed to tell her anything. And apparently, whenever he would go there, they would have to block out the windows and his eyes so that he didn't know where they were going. I know we know where Area 51 is now, but I think back then it was still kind of like they were trying to keep it on the down low as much as they could. It's in Nevada, correct? It is in Nevada.
Yes.
Yeah, that's crazy. Raiding Area 51. What's the biggest like thing you've seen that people want to find other than aliens in Area 51 that you've heard of?
I haven't heard of anything specific. The aliens are the big one, but the other one, I guess in general, just more like any government secrets is
Yeah.
what they're going for.
See, yeah, I've been hearing a lot of different things. But most of it is all just jokes. Like a lot of it is like Krabby Patty's secret formula,
Half-Life 3.
Half-Life 3, Portal 3. There's other things. I know I've heard so many. At this point, it's all just a joke. It's funny because now it seems like a lot of the like popularity about Area 51 has died down, but I think some people are still trying to get it back up. I don't know. It's people shouldn't do it. They shouldn't do it. It's a bad idea because like what do you think the repercussions would be if because that with that many people who signed up there's gonna be a good chunk that actually go.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be people who show up on that day. Was it the 20th or the 21st? I can't remember.
I think it's the 20th.
Okay, 20th, 3 a.m.
20th at 3 a.m. What do you think? Are they allowed? Like, what do you do if you're Area 51 guards or government people that like what are they at liberty to do to people who try and get in?
Well,
Obviously, like arrest them, but like if some people come in with like weapons, because like we can't put that aside. A lot of people might bring weapons to this, joking or not. I don't
yeah.
know. Um, hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure. What do you think? What do you think the repercussions could be? Like, do you think that there will be any injuries or slaughter?
I'm sure there will be injuries. I have a hard time believing it will be a large scale slaughter because I don't
Yeah.
because one there was one video I saw a little while back on they would video was about like what would realistically happen if a bunch of people showed up that day. And I
Mm,
think the main outcome would be that in the time, because it was publicly announced and they had a lot of time from when it first happened until September 20th.
mhm.
So the most logical thing would probably be that they would be stocking up on non lethal weapons to be able to easily subdue all of them without actually, because I'm sure killing them would be like the last resort.
Yeah. What counts as non-lethal weapons? Do you know?
Knockout gas,
Knockout.
tranquilizers,
Okay.
stun
Yeah, that
guns.
makes sense.
Well, if they're close range, depends.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure they would have long range
Mm,
um, assets that they could use.
yeah. It's crazy. I don't, because isn't it just basically a military base? Like it's most likely just weapons and like I would think. Like, what do you think is most likely there?
Weapons, experimental aircraft, and other technology
Do,
that
okay,
other
well
countries should not know about.
then let me ask you this, because I am curious of your answer. Do you think that Area 51 is hiding something at all?
I'm sure. I'm sure it's hiding something. I'm sure it's hiding something that the public should not know about.
Hmm,
But there is plenty of possibilities on what it could be.
that's true. I don't think it's aliens. I,
No,
it'd be great. It'd be hilarious if it was aliens. Um, but
we
no,
find ET.
yeah, find ET. Find the season 10 of The Office. That's another one that I heard. Season 10 of The Office. Um, no, but I do you believe in aliens?
It's hard to say. Well, what we know as of aliens, I don't think so. What would be considered aliens to me would be life that we don't know about, not from Earth.
So not
But
necessarily humanoid beings, but like things that count as living out aside the Earth.
yeah, I'm sure if we visited like Pluto, we might find bacteria we've never heard of
Mm,
or know of before.
okay.
There could be plenty of other stuff way out there. There could be other habitable planets that we'll never be able to get to because we'll never live long enough to be able to travel the distance.
What do you think would be like do you think the world would be different if aliens did exist? Like in the sense of like the movies basically. Like basically like we're just it's not like anything crazy like there's always a war going on, but like do you think the world would be different if there was other worlds that had living humanoid creatures or non-humanoid creatures like walking around? Um, do you think that would like change history, change to the future? Do you think it would just there wouldn't be a change? What do you think would go on with that if that was a thing?
I believe, as with all humans, that there will be. I'm sure there would be groups who would want to share knowledge and further both species developments.
Yeah.
But same thing on the opposite end, there would always be groups who would want to take for themselves and
Hmm.
eliminate the weaker opponents.
That's true. Because people are stupid. Do you think? Hmm. Because one thing I most commonly see in science fiction is
They're more advanced.
they're way more advanced than us. Do you think that'd be accurate, or do you think they'd be closer to the same level as us? Because that's what would be my theory. My theory would be that like depending on how what you think of time and what like what people believe is the universe and how the universe started and when it started, they haven't been around much longer than we have. Like we don't know that for sure. If depending on if they did exist. But I just have a hard time feeling that aliens are always more smarter than us. I do think there's probably some, but if they were real, I don't think we would be the lowest species, always the one to die first or get invaded. Why can't we be an alien? Why is that never a movie? Why are we never the
Why don't we invade other planets?
Yeah, why is that not a movie where we're the alien, we're the UFO that
Don't
go
we
we're
invade what was it, Avatar?
Oh yeah, that's right. They do that movie. Avatar did do that. I forgot about that. Oh yeah. Oh well, that's sad though because do you remember how that movie went? We were
Yeah.
jerks. Um, Planet 51.
Oh my gosh, no.
Ew. That is funny. Yeah, I guess they have done that before. It would be different though. It would be interesting to think what would the actual repercussions be if we went and invaded someone else's land compared to if they did it to us. Because we always have like cliches like a flying ship comes to Earth. We want to have peace because we're honestly scared of them. Then they end up eating us or taking us and doing science experiments on us. And then a lot of people die. That's basically the cliche. There was a movie Disney made. I just recently watched it with my dad. What was it? It was John Carver. Do you know that
Carter?
movie? Carter? John Carter. That's what it was. Yes, John Carter.
I think.
Um, I don't know the whole backstory of it, but I think the principle was that he went to Mars, and because his body was different and stuff, he had like enhanced abilities on Mars. Like he could jump super high, he could fight better. It was kind of cool. What do you think um, would happen to us technologically speaking and physically speaking if we did have aliens? Do you think anything would change? Do you think we would advance? Do you think we would go backwards? Um, what do you think? Anything?
Okay, I find it hard for anything to go backwards simply because by now there's 7 billion people on Earth.
Hmm.
That for all of that knowledge to just be Thanos snapped
Well, do
would
you
be,
believe that history can repeat itself?
yeah, history can repeat itself, but still there will always be people who know what had happened before
Hmm.
because for past however many hundreds of years, history has been recorded by all sorts of different people.
Hmm.
So, for the most part, there is huge chunks of important information that probably will not be able to be erased unless we took out either the entirety of the internet and the entirety of books. But I find that hard to believe.
What do you think would happen? Because I've thought about this recently, actually. If the world lost the internet tomorrow, it's just gone. Everything about the internet disappears. Thanos snapped like that. Just nothing left. There's no internet. There's electricity. There's power, but there's no World Wide Web. I think personally, the world might explode. At least in some areas. I'm not saying all of it. I think the world would be fine, like 70-30, maybe 80-20. But I do think if we lost the internet now, where the planet is at currently, the world might partially explode.
Well, if we lost the internet, the problem with the internet is it's not one thing.
No,
It's
I know.
all these servers from
Yeah,
all different sources that are connected. So we would need to shut down everything
that's
that
true.
connects online for that to happen. But if one day there were no more connections between all these different servers, we would probably lose a whole lot of information that would be irrecoverable
Hmm.
because by
That's true.
now because it's much easier to make a write thousands and thousands of pages on a computer than it is to physically write and print thousands and thousands of pages of books. Because
Yeah.
books take up a lot more physical space than
Hmm.
data does on a whole bunch of hard drives.
Do you believe the world would survive if tomorrow we lost power forever? All power in any
Yes,
form of the shape. Do you think the world would survive? There's no more
yes,
charging things. There's no more phones. Many machines are gone. Um, light is gone. We have to depend back on fire again. You think it would? You think it would be okay? Do you think okay? But how well do you think we'll do?
okay. the
because
well, the thing is, if one day we lost, like say there was a solar flare, because I know that's topic and whatnot, but
Mhm.
if we lost access to everything electrical, one big problem would be all those cooling systems at the nuclear power plants. So
Mm,
those would be
true.
huge problematic areas.
Oh yeah.
So anyone close by to all of those would probably not live long enough, simply because of how hot those can quickly, how hot a nuclear power plant can get without the proper coolant system. Which is
Mm,
why when Phantom made his nuclear reactor on Syndicate Season 2, we had to make
mhm,
sure that was constantly cooled.
mm.
What else? But there are a lot of people living in remote areas who don't even need power, and they're far away from civilization that they probably would not be affected.
That's true, and I do agree with that. I do agree that like the world won't die if we lose power. Like that's obvious. Like it's not gonna completely just come to a halt. But like the ratio between the people who have power and use it between the people who don't have it and don't use it is a big difference. And that like I think there would be so much like there would be there would be problems like you're saying with things like that actually like are physically important like nuclear power, but there would also be issues just mentally. People have gotten so attached to power and powered items, machines like nowadays, like people wouldn't a lot of people wouldn't know what to do with their lives. Like they wouldn't know how to function, they wouldn't know how to survive. um I think a lot of people would start to like I think there'd be a lot of like people who would start attacking like probably the government or people who are in charge, um, to try and get them to figure out what the heck's going on or how to fix their solution. And that would just cause more pain and suffering, and because people couldn't be helped.
Yeah,
Um, but that would be crazy though, because like I don't know, I would have a very hard time without technology. I even think you would have a hard time without technology because I feel like personally, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think you, me, people like Brent, Isaac, I think we would have a hard time without technology, but us specifically, we could survive without it. We would know that it is possible to survive without it. We just wouldn't want to. But hmm. So you say you don't believe that we can go backwards, but you don't think that losing all power, all technology, you don't think that would be a step backwards for the human race?
it would be a step backwards because I'm sure there is plenty of data that is only stored
Mm-hmm.
digitally, but even
Yeah.
without power, there's still many libraries worth of information as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's
that's true.
easier to lose the internet than it is to lose every single book ever written.
That's very true. One thing we have actually been talking about in my print production class is what do you think the future of printed, um, what word did she use? Printed products are, printed things like that. Like, so anything from books, magazines, to other things like t-shirts and things like that, like things that not just written, not just paper, but like printed products. Um, what do you think the future of that is? Like, do you think it's we're gonna always have printed items? Like, do you think we're always gonna have books? And like, I know, take it from this sense. Let's say we pause right here in time. We always will have the books from now. But do you think starting from here and on, do you think we'll always have books, new books in the future? Or do you think, and not just books, but printed products, do you think it's all going to be printed Um, do you think it's always? Do you think we're always going to have that kind of product?
I believe there will always be things that will remain printed. For
Mm-hmm.
example, you mentioned shirts.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, we will always be making more shirts, so those will always be printed on. However, though, there is can't remember the name of it, but there is a type of technology that I think newspaper companies do
Mm-hmm.
where they have all the information of what was on that newspaper, but it was on something that was like really, really small, and you needed a special machine to be able to read it. I think that what will probably one day eventually in the future, instead of having full sized books,
Mm-hmm.
because some books, I'll use example the Bible, since the
Mm-hmm.
Bible is a big book, having the entirety of it, it physically takes up a lot of space unless the text is really small.
Yeah.
So I believe that one day we will be able to have a good system where books are physically smaller, but we still have some way to be able to read what is on them at a good size.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like magnifying glass, but it would be more it would be more complex than that.
Okay. See, one of the things we had to think about in that class was like the importance of printed products and if it is important at all. Um, and I came from a standpoint where, and I'm not saying this is completely what I believe, but I do think it has some like truth to it. Um, it seems like to me there will always be a need for printed products. I do think that printed products will never completely vanish, but I also like a lot of people take the stance that I've heard that like you know one of the biggest conversations is a pain. Like if you use digital products, it can cause eye problems, back problems, different things like that. And they're saying that future older generations are having a harder time adjusting. Well, I take the stance where if you think about it, the more we grow and the more our community and the world starts to evolve, it seems as though technology is just becoming more what's the word more common, like so much more common. Because I was taking the stance that basically some kids will only grow up knowing technology in the future, and so if you take it from their point of view, they won't need printed products because, or at least in the book sense, like they'll never need books or anything or handwritten items because they'll grow up only knowing technology that their brain will just be used to it. They won't have a harder time studying or a harder time looking at a screen for long because their body will just be used to it. That's my theory. I don't know if that would be accurate or not. I don't know what you would think about that subject about future generations.
Yeah, I believe there will be that, yeah, kids who have grown up only knowing digital technology, eventually we will adapt to it.
Hmm.
But I'm not sure how slow or how much of a difference that would be compared to, say, our grandparents who only just started using screens
Yeah.
within the past, was it like 40 years or so? What was that
Hmm.
put us at? Was it, yeah, 70, 79?
Think so.
So, as the first digital screens came out, I believe it was like mid to late 70s. So that is still relatively new compared to all the other advances of history that
Hmm.
have happened. So another thing to think about that, like, just for you and me knowing, and because it was like 2 days ago, I'm gonna bring it up. But we were born while there were still the twin towers
Yeah.
erected. eventually, like, actually, no, I wouldn't say eventually. I'll say our kids would have never known them
That's true.
because yeah, we were young, but we were still alive before it happened.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. It's hard. It's weird to think about what the future has to hold for different generations. Hmm. Yeah, you bring up a good point with the. It's gonna be hard. History is a whole other issue. I feel like trying to understand what the future holds for history, it's gonna be harder and harder, especially because kids just lose interest. Like, I know we like, yeah, they'll definitely be more used to technology and stuff, but I do like think that it's gonna be harder for them to care. One thing that I have noticed personally, I don't know about you, but personally, I believe that with all the new technology that's been coming around, kids are way more spoiled. They're not as hard or disciplined because as much as technology helps people to grow, well, technologically speaking, it also it's such an easier tool. It's not like we had to grow up writing and thinking and diagramming sentences. Do you remember that?
Oh yes, you got the
Diagramming
lines, you got
sentences.
the.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Kids don't do that anymore.
it looked
I
like a
don't think they
flower
do.
at the end.
Yeah. It was insane. And kids are never going to do that anymore because like they don't need
It's
to.
all
It's
Microsoft Word,
yeah, all Microsoft Word now.
Word,
Um
PowerPoint,
mhm.
some
It's
Excel, but
insane.
that's other stuff.
Yeah. Um but I mean, technology also comes with more benefits too. There you have to think about the benefits. There's obviously going to be more ways to help with what was I going to say? Things like medical problems, governmental problems. Like technology will always help, but it will like that's the problem. People always get into these debates, but when you think about it, there will always be, no matter what debate you're in, there will always be benefits and curses. Like there will always be, no matter what debate. At least that's what I think. Would you disagree or agree?
Yes, I believe with technology there will always be a lot of benefits, and there will always be a lot of problems.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. That's why going back to Area 51, it's like people are getting so angry at people who have been talking about the fact that they're thinking about going, but it's like, I mean, you think about it. I know. I mean, I know that's a bad argument. I was gonna say, if they have something to hide, if they don't have something to hide, then why would they get mad at us for going in? But there's also trespassing laws, so I get that. I'm just gonna take that argument and throw it that way because that was a bad argument. So sorry.
Yep.
um, it's still against the law, but still, I don't think. I doubt Area 51 would have anything completely world changing. There's no aliens. There's no technology beyond our comprehension. Like at most, there are vehicles that are made for or are in testing for better climates and of war and stuff. There's better weapons that are in the works of being created, but I don't think there's no green aliens. There's not the like there's nothing crazy from the Bible in there. They're not hiding anything, I don't think. Didn't okay, but the one thing I never understood was years ago didn't Area 51 deny the fact that it existed, or not Area
Yeah,
51, but like the government?
yeah. The government refused to believe it existed until 2006, I think. I think that was when it was officially announced. Don't
Hmm.
quote me on that, but I think is same thing. Yeah, I know it's only one source, but it was also from that video on logically what would happen if a bunch of people were to try to storm Area 51, because it gave a lot of different perspectives and also pieces of information on the security of Area 51. And didn't go into specifics because there's a lot of stuff that the main guy who has worked there was not allowed to say. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of stuff missing, but it did give a lot of information. But I think it was 2006 when it
See,
was officially
why
released.
did they deny it? Did they ever speak of that? Why? Because that's the one sketchy thing about all this is why they would deny it. Because that, and to me, it just kind of seems like, okay, then they were definitely hiding it because there's something they don't want us to know about that's there. Probably not aliens, but still, like, what could be so bad that they can't tell the public that it even exists? The place of holding something, not even what it is, the place itself. Why would it be such a big deal to know it exists?
I think it mostly comes down to national security was the big thing about it.
Mm, which is
There is
weird.
a lot of stuff that we wouldn't want well, not necessarily, well, kind of, yeah, other countries, but more like people who intend to do harm to the United States. That it's best that they do not know about it.
Hmm. Do you think if people do go, because there will be people, do you think let's take the standpoint of, let's say, all over 2 million people go, all of them? Do you think, or not? Do you think? What do you think would come from that after it's over? Things like news, culture. Do you think, like, depending on the outcome, what do you think would change in the world, if anything, depending on if all 2 million people went to storm Area 51?
I think it would really depend on what would end up happening because if there is 2 million people, I'm sure a big chunk of anyone who goes would still try to get as far as they can, while
Hmm.
there are going to be a lot of others who wouldn't get past like the outer edge of
Yeah.
where they first start getting surveyed because for the they have cameras and other forms of what was it visibility. That's not
Hmm.
that's the best word I can think of for a very large radius around there. And because, in fact, the area is so large that people just drive in and out the frequently, but there's no need to do anything because they're just passing by. Because I believe there was a road close to there, so from the people who just drive like through, who just enter and exit, it's best to just leave them alone to not even let them know that they've been watched the entire time
Hmm.
they're close by.
Mm, interesting. Hmm, I don't know. I think, well, one thing that's crazy is how much it's already affecting just culture. Like, not unbelievably crazy, but I mean, just the fact that so many people have heard about this and, like, taken it seriously or not taken it seriously. The fact that it's gotten to the news and people have actually had to, like, say, like, don't do it, like, you will be arrested. Like, people are actually thinking about doing this, and it's like, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that because it couldn't have been it could have been anything. Like, this, like,
We could have stormed the White House.
exactly. And like, and not to get even, like, a little too dark or anything, but, like, there could have been just social media posts about 9/11, if you think about it. Maybe not at that time, but let's say the Twin Towers were still here. If people posted that they were going to fly and crash into 9/11, the two towers, like, people would be talking about it just the way that they're talking about Area 51, and it could be anything. The White House, Area 51, the Twin Towers, it could be anything, and it's always going to stir up people. Another downside to technology, like, or a benefit, depending on how you look at it.
Because then the government's going to be prepared and take action and
Yeah,
know that when it's coming, so they're going to stock up on whatever resources they need to prevent it from happening.
yeah. It's yeah. It's kind of crazy to think uh, what in not Instagram, social media has done, especially with the 2 million people. That's insane. Like, thinking about how many people that is altogether, like, is completely nuts to me. Um, what do you think? Trying to think of where to go with this now. Uh, if there are weapons in Area 51, what do you think are the weapons that they could be trying to create? Like, what do you think the future of weaponry is, if there is any? Like, what do you think would make a weapon better or worse than it is today?
It would be long range and undetectable.
How would you think to make weaponry undetectable completely?
The so far the only known, well, the only known that I know of true proven methods would be the way it's designed, that when the frequency waves, I can't remember what it's kind of like sonar, the actual things, the because sonar detects using sound waves any physical objects, and you know something's there when the sound waves bounce back. But the way it would be designed is that when the sound waves bounce off of it, it never returns to the same way. There are certain battleships that are designed, everything's at an angle, that when the waves bounce off, they never bounce back to the origin, to show that
Oh.
since nothing was hit, or since the waves never returned, there's nothing there.
Mm.
So, I mean, I don't. I find it hard to believe that we would come up with the common sci-fi cloaking technology where it just turns invisible.
Hmm.
I think we're way too soon for something like that. So if you see it, if you physically see it with your own eyes or cameras or whatever, then it's not detectable. But in the sense of technology, common technology would not be able to pick it up, is what I would consider undetectable.
Okay. What do you think? Do you think we're ever going to get there, the human race, or do you think? Because I know it depends on your belief of reality. Because some people, I've heard some people who are Christians, they believe that we're not really going to get to any crazy, unbelievable technological advancement before the time of Jesus coming back. But some people, like atheists, I mean, they just think that the world keeps going and going and going for millions of years until the sun finally eats us up. And I mean, in that amount of time, we could make trillions of technological advancements. What do you personally believe? Like, how far do you think the human race will go before either God takes us home or the sun eats us up?
I think we will advance on a lot of small scale things. Like, I think we have the well, given enough time, I think we're getting closer to self-driving cars.
That's true.
So I think
Yeah.
that has
Oof.
a while to go still for it to be completely does not need a driver. But I think
Hmm.
we're getting closer on that. And then we're also, I think it also has a little ways to go, but is the concept of a flying car, where it's a normal vehicle that drives around just fine, but you're still able to take off and land, depending on whether the concept is closer to a plane, where it needs a long distance and just glides, or if it's closer
Hmm.
to a helicopter, where it's able to take off vertically and then more like hovers around. So
But you don't think we're gonna get to a place where like teleportation would be possible?
there, I think I heard somewhere that the closest thing right now we have to teleportation is moving like one atom at a time, and it's like a short distance.
What?
I think we move something very very small, a very short distance.
Huh.
So I think full human teleportation is still a very long ways to go. But I
Okay.
think something we might be able to figure out is, I'm going to go back, but the closest thing I can think of the true invisible cloaking technology would be it's just a bunch of little screens and it's just a bunch of little cameras that the way it's designed, how the camera on the opposite end of the object kind of points to the screen
Mm-hmm.
on, well, if the camera's on one side, it points to the screen on the opposite end. But the way the lenses work and the way how mathematically accurate we can get it, it creates the image on the back side as close to as possible to what is physically there, pointed in the same direction on the other side.
Okay.
But I think getting the cameras and the screens or whatever, however we work it, I think that's still a very long ways to go as well.
Well, so one idea of the future of technology that I would love to hear your thoughts on because I think about it all the time. What do you think the future of VR is? Virtual reality, because we're getting like it's starting to go really fast. All the different like updates and upgrades and like advancements that it's making in comfort, in like what's the word? Like feeling like you're in it. Like it's getting better at that. Some controllers are making it so that you actually have to grip with your fingers, which makes it more realistic in game. But what do you think the future has to hold for VR, virtual reality? Because that's a big one lately.
I think one thing, the closest, I don't know how far we'll actually get, but I think the closest thing we can, or the most truest thing we can have for VR
Hmm.
is it's a full body suit that simulates the physical feeling all over on whatever it is you are trying to be in.
And is this kind of in a sense like Ready Player One? Is
I
is that
I think
is
we
that
can.
kind of what you're going for, or is it a different idea?
That is kind of what I am going for, but I'm not sure how realistic it's going to
Mm.
actually be
Well,
because
yeah,
I feel like there will still be, unless you're in it for like years on end. But the only problem is you would need nourishment, and that's a whole nother problem.
that's
But I
true.
feel like you would still be able to tell what is virtual and what is the difference from real life. Because I think it would take a very long exposure for you to forget what it's actually like in real life.
Hmm. One thing that just came kind of to my mind is in Ready Player One. One of the things I kind of noticed that I thought was interesting on a take of like the future of technology is since technology's whole point is to make life easier. You kind of saw in that movie, for anybody who didn't watch it, it seemed as though most people in the world had virtual reality or at least some kind of future technology. Like it was very advanced, but the world was also very bare and broken, and it didn't seem good. And like thinking about it, I hmm, do you think as technology gets easier, we're going to get worse, like with taking care of cities, environment, um, like just in general, people, education? Like technology will make it easier for us to do things, but like the idea of just, for example, malls are shutting down. Like there are no malls anymore, but like there are some, but they're not relevant anymore because you can get everything online. That like with that kind of idea, what do you think like else would the future have to hold, like with technology getting more relevant in people's lives?
So going back kind of what I said earlier with if we did have communications with beings not from Earth, there will always 100% of time be some sort of group or groups or whoever who will
True.
always want to do what is better for the whole of humanity.
It's true. Some
So
some
I
of them are
believe there will
religions.
always be groups who will do their best to take care of everything that we currently have now to
But
make
do you
sure it
think there
doesn't
will
cause
be enough
problems.
to outweigh the ones who don't care as much? Do you think it's balanced? Do you think it'll always be balanced?
I don't think it will always be balanced, and going back, I don't care how cheesy a joke this is, but going back to 2B2T,
Okay.
the problem is anarchy will always reign supreme because it's much easier to flatten a whole city than it is to build one up.
That's very true. That's
It
very
will
true.
always be easier to destroy than to create. So that is
Yeah.
why the bad will always have the advantage.
Hmm. Thinking about that, since you bring 2B2T up, what do you think the world would be like if there was no rules? If what's that movie called? The Purge.
One day I'll
What,
watch that. It's on my to-do list. It's not very high, so I never got there.
do you think what do you think that would happen? Do you think okay, let me ask you this. Do you think it would be what people commonly think where if all laws gone, there's no rules at all? Uh that do you think it would make it so that people would obviously be evil and everybody would go nuts and do whatever they want and it would just be terror forever? Or do you think it would go like the world it may be that at first, but then people would start to make more laws and rules again and um or do you think it would be something like in between?
I think. Well, it's kind of hard because there's a lot of different aspects to it.
True.
But I think if if we're going based off of no more governments, no more official laws, no more law enforcement, all that, I
Hmm.
believe recurring theme, there will always be these small groups who will want to do good and they will want to survive
Hmm.
well because it's much harder for people to survive on their own than it is with a smaller group. So I believe there will be small groups that will do their best to survive as little communities, but there will always be raiders and anarchists who will always want to only care about themselves and will only be wanting to better or obtain more just for themselves, not caring about the other people.
Hmm.
So
I have
if
a
oh,
go on.
so sorry, if there were no laws and governments, I think all of the everyone who's been preparing for doomsday got their stacks and stacks of food and water and has their entire bunker all planned out. I think they would bunk down in their hole in their designated area that they were preparing for this. So they will last however long as they prepared for.
Mm.
But there will be a lot of people roaming the streets, just doing whatever they want, taking stuff, killing other people and whatnot.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like kind of generalizing it and it is kind of a little cliche, but I feel like the world will always have a feeling of right and wrong. Um and kind of like what you were saying, there's always going to be people who believe that we should act right and that we should keep the laws and try and help one another, and there will always be people who would like just lose their minds and start killing hundreds and but I feel like at the end of like it all, if that was the scenario, complete and utter like no rules at all anymore, I feel like eventually the world would get to a place where humanity and culture they would start to build up again just like they have in actual history. Like there would be war, there would be conflict, but even with laws and rules now, there's already wars and conflicts. Um, I feel like humanity needs like what's the word? I feel like humanity needs to have guidance or some kind of feeling of rules in motion, because I don't know if us as people would know what to do if there weren't rules. Um, that's kind of just what I would think, at least. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I can kind of see where you're going. I think it would be a while because
Oh yeah, definitely.
laws are only as good as the people who can enforce them.
True. Very
So
true.
we have laws because we have the entire police system set up because that's all able to control all these smaller areas, which in
Hmm.
turn helps maintain all the government laws for the whole country.
Yeah.
So for humanity to build back up, there would need to be enough people who have the power to be able to enforce the laws to keep things right
Yeah.
for however many people that are there. So it would just take a whole lot of good people after anarchy to be able to establish a well-going civilization that does
Hmm.
remain in order, as do our current, as do most common current governments are currently set up.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, it would definitely take quite a while for anything to get back to the way it was. Um, that's kind of what in a way, that was kind of where I was going when I asked you earlier. Do you think that history can repeat itself? I feel like the future, in a way, it sounds stupid, but in a way, the future repeats itself too. Um, I feel like we're always gonna go on a steady motion no matter what. There will always be something big that happens. There will always be some form of 9/11. There will always be some form of something great, like uh, what's something great that's happened in the world? uh,
It's unfortunate.
um, you know,
Going to the moon.
going to the moon. Yeah, thank you. Whew, sorry. I know the world has had a lot of great times. Apparently, I just suck at remembering them. No, but there will always be going to the moon. There will always be 9/11. There will always be conflict. There will always be happiness. I think the world is always going to have that balance, because, in a way, I also think, now this goes into stupid stuff like yin and yang, but I think that good needs bad just as much as bad needs good, on a weird, crazy level. Not even just people. I don't think you can have bad unless you have good, if that makes sense. That's getting into a little bit of a deeper subject, but I do think that's true, whether it's based off religion or just, whatever you believe in. Like, there, you can't have good unless you have bad, because then good can't be good
It
and
wouldn't
bad
be
can't be
good. It
bad.
would just be
Yeah,
as
exactly.
is.
Yeah, exactly. No
You
matter
only know which way is up because there's a down.
exactly. There's always got to be a balance. There will always be balance, and you can't escape that. So, well, I mean, that's kind of it. I think we've covered a lot. Um, so at the end of the day, please don't raid Area 51. Please don't. It's not worth it. There's nothing there for you. Don't get arrested. You have a family. You have kids, a wife, a husband, a brother, a sister, cousin.
Not all of them. I'm sure there's a lot of people who live alone
Well,
or don't live in a
but
home.
you got
Just go to Hobo
yourself.
Wonderland.
Don't lose yourself. That would suck too. Don't raid it. Don't storm it. Don't do anything stupid. Just sit down, eat some bagel bites, have a good day. Watch some Minecraft Let's Plays. Subscribe to me. Subscribe to Alex. Our channels will be linked in this. Will be links in the description below. We have a lot of content for you guys to watch. Spend your time watching us. Don't go to the raid on the 20th. Sit down and watch us probably play some Piecraft Syndicate.
Yeah, because Syndicate's still going after 3 years, two
Yep,
years.
we're still going strong on that. Well, strong. We're going. We're
We go.
trying to go strong.
We got plans for the future. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
we do. We have a lot of plans for that. So look forward to that. But other than that, I think we're good. Thank you, Alex, for joining me. Hope you enjoyed this talk too.
Indeed. I was concerned because you wouldn't tell me what it was, so I was like, oh,
Yeah.
it better be good.
I figured you'd like it. I figured Area 51 was a topic you'd like. So, yeah. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, then make sure to give it a like down below. And if you want to see more content like this, well, you're subscribed to a podcast channel. Don't worry, there will be more next Sunday on at 8 o'clock in the morning. So be sure to tune into that. Um,
8 o'clock PST.
yeah, 8 o'clock PST. Uh, if you want, I also have my main channel. I'll also leave that in the description. Make sure to go subscribe to that if you want to see my other stuff like vlogs, gaming. Gaming's not going to be forever, but I have a lot of vlogs, challenges. Make sure to subscribe to Alex. He has a lot of gaming as well. Minecraft, Bioshock,
Half-Life.
Half-Life. Yeah.
I gotta bring Half-Life back. And
So yeah.
Bioshock.
But other than that, I hope you guys all have a great day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.